You ready to do this, Matt?
Yes, sir. Punch it, Chewy.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Matt Shaw. We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 150. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Matt, it has been a crazy week, I feel like, for both of us.
Yeah.
But I think your week has been probably the craziest. Hit us up with that recap. What is going on, my friend?
Well, Super Friends, Lando Watch 2019. Lando has arrived 2019.
The Falcon has arrived.
Yeah. It was a pretty emotional week. We both kind of felt like he was going to come early, and his due date was the 4th of October. And so Jessie went in for her appointment on Wednesday, which was the 2nd. We were kind of bummed that she even made it that far. But the doctor had told us at the very least you're going to get induced on Monday the 7th. So we always had that date in our mind, like, okay, we only got to make it till then. Unfortunately, it was like the doctor wasn't there, so it was, I don't know what they call, a nurse something or other.
Like a nurse practitioner?
Thank you. That's the word, nurse practitioner. And she was like super slow and barely moved. And she was like, they're all full on Monday, so Wednesday it is. And Jessie was devastated because that's another 2 days of being really, really pregnant. So that was pretty frustrating. My mother-in-law was coming in on Wednesday night, and so that's like a long time for her to be here before the baby would even get here. Anyway, it was kind of a cluster of crap that day.
Yeah.
Anyway, then Friday morning rolls around. Jessie comes into my office at 10:15 and says, hey, I've been having contractions for like 45 minutes. We need to go. So threw all my stuff together because I didn't think that it was going to happen and realized I didn't have anything ready. And got in the car, left Emmy with our mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, yours and my mother-in-law. And
Right.
That's why I said our. Anyway, went to the hospital, and this is similar thing that happened to Jessie last time. It happens really fast for her, like really fast. The contractions are not slow. Like we always read about that. They start out a little slow and then they pick up and come in when they're 3 to 5. They're 3 to 5 for her right from the get-go. There's no waiting involved. So when we got there, she was pretty well dilated, like 90% effaced, whatever the crap that kind of stuff means. But
okay.
like
I can tell you if you really want to know.
Nah.
I don't think you want to know.
So he's getting close. And we were stuck in triage for a while, and the contractions are getting worse and worse. And we're telling the nurse that's there, we're like, no, you need to admit us like now because Jessie goes fast. Like you don't understand. Last time she was in and out, and she was in by like 8, and the baby was born at 5, and we need to get this stuff kind of rolling because she's got to take this medicine before the baby comes because she's got blah 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 blah. Anyway. Yeah. So after like 45 minutes in there, I walk out of the little triage curtain room and I go over to the nurse. I'm like, this has to happen now. Can you get on the phone with the doctor that's doing the hospital stuff right now? Because we have to go. And she's like, okay. So we pulled her in, and sure enough, we got into labor and delivery. She barely got the epidural. Within 30 minutes of getting the epidural, we had a baby boy. And
look at that.
It happened so fast. Funny. We get in there, nurse checks her. She's like, you're about a 6. So you're getting there. That was after the epidural. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom because it's been a long morning. 5 minutes in the bathroom. I come out. There's a different nurse in there that says, you're about to have another baby. I said, I know. She goes, no, right now. I was like, what? What's going on here? So anyway, the epidural took effect just in time. She didn't feel much of anything. So Jessie was a champ. She did great. She pushed for 15 minutes, maybe.
Wow.
And that baby was, bloop, and all the nurses were like, oh, there he is. It wasn't like a slow burn where the head comes out into the shoulders. It was like, zoom. So yeah, Lando was born on October 4th at 1:49, 7 pounds, 7 ounces. Happy, healthy baby boy, happy, healthy mom.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, it was cool. It's a lot different the second time than the first time. A lot less stressful for both of us, I think. A lot less shock involved.
So this was last Thursday.
This was Friday.
Friday. Okay. Because I'm trying to remember when I heard. I think it was Saturday or maybe Sunday I heard. When did I text you?
That was Saturday.
Remember? So, okay, Saturday.
At least Saturday.
So I heard like a day later, and like we were just kind of talking about something, and Brita just kind of casually said, yeah, and you know, something in Lando. And I was like, oh, did they have the baby? She's like, yeah, you didn't know? I'm like, no, because I'm not on the dang family text message because they abuse it and they're habitual line steppers and they can't be trusted.
Right.
And so she's like, oh, yeah, sorry. I totally forgot to tell you. And I just was busy. And
Thanks,
I'm like,
Brita.
Okay, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to text Matt right now and, you know, say congratulations and this, that, and the other. Which I want to say, like, of course, like, I text you congratulations, but, like, in the same breath, I'm like, hey, if you need to take the week off, like, take the week off. Like, take some time. Like, that's cool. And, like, immediately you text me back. You're like, yay, thanks. No way, man. I'm not missing it. And I was like, okay. So that either says one of two things about you. One, you're super committed to being here every week for the Super Friends. Or two, you've now got 2 kids and a mother-in-law under your roof. You just wanted some alone daddy time.
Can't it be both?
I'm not going to make you tell us what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take a couple guesses.
I do enjoy the podcast, though. Honestly, this makes me really happy. I'm glad that I could be here. I'm glad he was born in a way that I could still record.
Right.
And it's great. Emmy's asleep. My mother, father-in-law, and Jessie are out there with the baby. They don't need me.
Nope.
I'm worthless right now, so here I am.
Yep.
And I'm worthless with a newborn. All dads are. We all know that feeling. It's like
Sure.
I can't feed it. I mean, what am I gonna do? So
when Jackson was born, Brita kind of looked at me like, I need help. And I was like, I'm not equipped. What do you want me to do? And then she's like, oh, you can take care of our other son. I was like, oh yeah. I can't play the same game you did with child number 1 with child number 2.
Right.
You're going to find that you're going to be doing a lot of raising of Emmy in the next couple months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's okay. Emmy's used to me being at home just because I work from home. So at least her transition will be easy. I'll have more things to do for sure with her, but she's more used to doing things just because I'm here. And when Jessie just can't anymore, she's like, go bug daddy in his office. So, but anyway, yeah, everything was great. We stayed 2 nights in the hospital and we got home yesterday morning. And it's been great, honestly. He's so much better and easier than Emmy was. Like, he sleeps like all the time. Emmy would sleep for 20 minutes max and then just start freaking out. So this is like incredible.
Nice.
We feel so happy.
Nice.
He doesn't sleep at night. He's got his nights and days mixed up. So Jessie's exhausted by the time Emmy wakes up in the morning. So we'll see how that goes.
That's to be expected, though,
that'll
right?
last for only a little while, and then things will kind of mellow out. But yeah, it's been a crazy few days there, which I could talk about endlessly, all the different things that happen, but all that really matters is I got a son.
Yeah, like I said, congratulations. That is so freaking awesome. I'm so happy that for Jessie that the pregnancy's over, because I had a wife that went through 2 of those, and I remember the pain and agony on her face daily.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. I'm also excited that, Lando's actually here, and it's not kind of this thing that's going to happen, but now it's like it's happened. Now you have a son, and I always hated the pregnancy part.
Yeah, sucks.
Getting the kid's fine.
Yeah.
The pregnancy part just kind of sucks because you're like, all right, we're waiting around here for 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, congratulations. That is awesome.
Thank you.
I know this is going to sound like a silly question, but have you been playing anything or watching anything this last week? Or
Yeah, I mean, this is the joy of the Nintendo Switch, though, is I can take it to the hospital and just play it. So yeah, I did. I played a little bit more of Astral Chain. I'm still trying to work through that game. Super fun game from Platinum Games. Really enjoying it. But I played a lot of Link's Awakening, the remake that was released on Switch, because I never played the original. So this is my first time with it. It's fun. It's fun. It's way more difficult than I thought it was going to be. There's no hand holding, man. Like, it's a tough game. It challenges you in kind of ways that only 2D games can, so it's a little different, but it's a lot of fun. And watching things, no. We haven't had any time to watch things, because I have to watch things with Jessie, or else it will be sad for everyone involved if I watch something without her. So we didn't get to watch anything this week. They're in the other room watching Spider-Man Homecoming right now, which we had our show about last week, and we'll hear some thoughts from the Super Friends later on in the show about their favorite Spider-Mens. So anyway, but that's it. How was your week? Tell me.
So my week has been mostly good. I'm going to start with the most obvious for you. The Super Friends aren't going to know. This isn't going to be super obvious to them unless they follow me on Twitter. So, oh gosh, what was this? Friday? Was it Friday night? No. Saturday. Saturday I got up in the morning and I decided to open up Twitch on my phone and just see who was streaming in the morning. And a super friend of the podcast, Tim Paulin, who's on Twitter at tpaulin20, I think it is. Tim was streaming on Twitch. And so I was just kind of messaging him back and forth, So then he was showing me a green screen that he got out of some just fabric from Walmart. And I was like, man, I wonder if I could move my PS4 over to my computer and set up Streamlabs OBS and run it through there. Because I've been streaming on Twitch just using the built-in PS4 features. And so I was like, okay, well, let me see, And then I went, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over to Walmart. I'm going to buy some neon green poster board and some neon green duct tape. And I'm going to try to put a background and see if I can use the green screen to, eliminate the background for the overlay.
Yeah.
Just to see if it's possible. So I set up the PS4. I got it all kind of hooked up. I got the green screen that I kind of made cheaply with poster board and duct tape. And then I basically just posted on Twitch and on Twitter saying, hey, I'm going to go live. I'm not really going to be playing anything, but I'm just trying to adjust and test my settings and see if I've got things set up right. And Tim said he would hop on and help me out. So a big shout out of appreciation to Tim for, first of all, being willing to do that. But then, oh my goodness, some of my favorite people on the internet, friends of mine, hopped in. Sean Capri, who's been a guest on this podcast, a good super friend of the show, hopped on, and he started talking about his setup. And so I'm trying to test my audio, and we're kind of going through the whole, can you hear this? Can you hear that? Let me test this. I set up an alert for if you follow me, it plays a little GIF and some music, and the volume was way too high, and I blasted out their ears. And so we were kind of adjusting that down. And as we're talking about this, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, what I need, and kind of putting everything together. As I'm talking, then Ed Placencia drops in. And Ed Placencia, a good friend of mine, Twitch streamer, co-host of Married to the Games, he hops in. And then Bernabe Butters dropped in. And who else dropped in? Frankie Perrin, Music Shooter, dropped in. So I had now 5 or 6 people drop in. And they're all just talking to me back and forth, and they're letting me check levels. And then I realized that by the time I ended that stream, we'd been streaming for like an hour and like 15 hour and 17 minutes, something like that, where like there was no gameplay involved. It was just a bunch of streamers kind of talking shop and helping me kind of fine tune my setup in. But as we're talking about it, I started getting this idea, you know what? I really would like a dedicated space and to get a decent green screen. And so as we're talking, I'm like looking on Amazon, and I found a green screen with a frame and lighting for like $80.
Nice.
Now, it's not going to be like world beating, but it's definitely going to accomplish the goal I need it to.
Yeah.
And considering that I'm using all the existing equipment that I have for the podcast already, and then I've built up through other things. I used to sing in some, bands and whatnot, so I've got, microphones and a mixer board and this, that. $80 was the only investment I had to spend. I set up my Streamlabs OBS, and then I decided, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need a better space. I can't do this green screen in the living room. So I'm going to move down into the basement, and I start talking to my wife, and she's like, okay. And then I was like, okay, but if I'm going to do that, I've got to run a network cable all the way down. So on Sunday, I end up cleaning out the basement nook area where we had some shelves that have all of our board games, an old like TV on DVD. And Brita came and helped me. We cleaned out all that. I moved the shelving into the little small storage space in the basement. And then we kind of repacked it and moved stuff around, moved the board games upstairs. Then I went and I ran a wire from one side of my house, up my house, along the eaves of the roof, up across through some gutters, up over part of the roof, down through the top of another gutter, and then down a rain spout, and then punched it into the house on the side of the house I needed to, so I could get it into the basement, wired up both ends, plugged everything in, had to, check my work over. I've got an active line into the basement now. Then I moved my whole computer and my PS4 setup and my streaming setup and everything. And then I set up the green screen today after I got home from work that arrived, and the lights. And so now I'm in, and I'll send you a picture so you can see. This is on Twitter already. I'm in my own little studio for podcast recording and for streaming down in my basement.
That is so awesome. I see it. I see it, Super Friends. It's really there, and it's great. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to give me the opportunity to stream a little differently, a little more professionally. I also finished Spider-Man, the DLC, the story.
Oh, yeah.
So now the question is, do I continue streaming Spider-Man while I finish off everything I need to get the platinum? Or do I move on to another game? And so I got a Twitter poll that's out there, Super Friends. You can go find me on Twitter at sstapleton79, and you can vote. The current options are 1, finish the rest of the Spider-Man for the platinum. 2, Lego The Hobbit. 3, Final Fantasy VIII. And 4 is The Witcher 3. 3 games I have not played, plus then, Spider-Man. So,
wow.
We shall see what I'm going to be streaming. Either more Spider-Man, which I think is in the lead right now, or something new.
And people want Spider-Man.
People do want Spider-Man. It has been a Spider-Man-filled week in our household. So that's the good. Now the bad.
Uh-oh.
Friday night after I was streaming, this is like literally like at midnight, I went to go run up the 4 little stairs that go from our living room to our kitchen. Uh-huh. And as I did that, I caught the tip of my left foot on the stair, and then when I went to take my next big leap up, my left foot gave out, like it slipped off the edge of the stairs, and both of my knees went crashing into the stairs full speed like I was running, and I fell backwards down the stairs.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm just laying on the ground, holding my knees in like the fetal position, and it took me about 20 minutes before I started stretching my legs to try to like stand up, and my left knee still is sore and is a little bruised. My right knee is extremely bruised. I actually wonder if I cracked my kneecap, because I have a spot in my kneecap that like, if you feel your kneecap, it's kind of smooth-ish.
Yeah.
But right now I feel like there's like a little like crease in my right kneecap. And if I touch that place, like it's extremely painful. So, and it's all bruised. So I'm trying to give it a few days more to see like if the swelling goes down, like does the pain start going away? Because on the left side, that's happening. The right side is still really pretty tender.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, then the next day, like I'm up on the roof like an idiot. Or 2 days later, I'm up on the roof like an idiot and like I'm kneeling down and I'm just like, oh, this hurts. So I jagged up my knees.
Yeah, that's
pretty bad.
Not fun at all.
And like Brita was like asleep. So like she didn't even hear any of this.
Oh my gosh.
And like, I mean, it sounded like a wrecking ball hit the house. Anyway. Yeah, so... there's that. I'm still rewatching 30 Rock. Love 30 Rock. And
So
then
good.
and then I played a whole bunch of Spider-Man into last week. And because of the whole, testing setups and movie and everything, I didn't play anything over the weekend. So,
Understandable.
yeah. It was an exciting week. Not as exciting as yours. You had the big week.
A home run,
For
baby.
sure. Oh, by the way, our sister-in-law, Reese, was talking to my wife, Brita, and I overheard part of this conversation, and Brita said something like, well, yeah, you can still call him Landon. That's fine. She's like, but it's going to be a little weird when the rest of the family's calling him Lando. And I just kind of said to Brita, I said, yeah, I think the only reason his real name is Landon is so he has options maybe like later in life. And Jesse wanted something a little more solid than like we're totally named our kid, after a Star Wars character.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. If Reese calls him Landon, I'm going to be pissed. Nobody can call him Landon. That's not his... Ugh.
I don't know that's going to happen, but I think she was just... Anyway, from what it sounded like in the overheard conversation, it was more like, I don't know that I really want to call him that. It's like, well, respect his mom and dad's wishes. That's his dang name. They named him Lando. And if Jesse's calling him Lando...
Yeah, which she is.
Then, don't do that. You know what I'm just saying? Like, don't do that. It's like Charlie, right? Charlie's full name is Charles.
Right.
We named him after my grandfather. I wanted him to have the option so, like, later in life, if he's in a very professional business setting, he could use Charles if he so chooses. Mm-hmm. But everyone calls him Charlie. We always wanted a boy. We wanted to name him Charlie.
Right.
After my grandfather, but we liked Charlie better. But I didn't want to just name him Charlie legally. I wanted to give him the name Charles, so we had the option.
Yep.
But he's Charlie. Have you ever heard me call him Charles?
No.
No, because that's not his name.
No, it's not his freaking name. I mean, her name is Reese.
Yeah.
I never heard that name in my whole life. Clarice.
It's Clarice. Yeah,
and
exactly.
So, what the heck?
Keep
Lando's no weirder than Reese.
Yeah, keep that arrow in your quiver, Matt. That's perfect.
I will.
You just say, oh, what was that? Clarice. Yeah.
It is a little bit strange, though, because like at the hospital, they're like, what's his name? And I'm like, Landon, for you to know.
For you people.
But for everybody else, it's Lando. So they're like,
I love that.
I don't know.
For you people,
I didn't know
Landon.
what to say.
Yeah.
It's like, gosh.
Yeah, that's when you just say, you know what? We're calling him Lando.
Yep.
His legal name is Landon, but
Yes.
we're calling him Lando.
Yep.
And, if you still haven't signed that birth certificate...
Could just leave it off.
It was in cursive. Maybe I left it off.
Jesse already signed all that stuff. They don't even let the dads do anything, man. I was just sitting back seat at the hospital. There, Jesse's signing his life away. Hey, you grew him. You do whatever you want with him.
Right.
That boy is your property.
There you go.
But yeah.
Well, in light of birth and life being given, do you feel it's appropriate that we take life away now?
All things equal. Balance.
Oh.
Okay? Balance. If
a
life
saying,
is given, a life must be taken.
Well, in that case, we have to take a Bothan's life this week.
We must. Actually, 6 equals 1 human life. So let's kill 6 Bothans.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Matt, we're into Rebel Intelligence. 6 Bothans have been murdered to equal Lando. What do you have for me this week?
All right, so first off, let's stick with Disney for a hot sec. This won't take too long. So Disney Plus, as we know, is coming out next month.
November 11th,
It's October now, so about a month from when this podcast will be released, almost exactly. So they are they're starting to go full bore and using some different tactics. And one of those tactics is to not air Netflix ads on ABC or Freeform anymore.
Really?
So they're taking all Netflix shows and movies and whatever else Netflix is going to advertise, and they're not showing them anymore. ESPN will continue to show Netflix ads when appropriate. I would expect to see a decrease, but there is a ban on Netflix ads on ABC and Freeform. They didn't mention like the Disney Channel or anything. I don't know that they even advise on Disney Channel because they're kids, I don't know why that would be successful. But yeah, so they're getting into it. I mean, this is a huge part of their platform moving forward, and they're going head to head with Netflix. No more ads. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, why advertise your competitor, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I just don't even think about it, you know? It's just like everything is together. You can advertise anything anywhere, but Disney owns ABC, and ABC is a huge network. Huge. I mean,
huge.
There's a lot of football games and basketball games, and the NBA finals are on ABC. I mean, it's like you're not getting any of that big airtime.
Yep. Wow. That's an interesting move. That's a bold move, Cotton. It's a bold move.
It's the right move, and I think, we probably expected it to happen. Maybe not to I don't know. It's an interesting, quote announcement, but they just kind of revealed and said, "Hey, look, Netflix, you're cut off. Sorry. Go pay your own rent."
What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to swing wildly in the opposite direction from beloved family-friendly Disney to the controversial clown movie Joker. So, Joker opened up this last weekend to $93.5 million domestically here in the U.S.
Wow.
Which set a theatrical opening, I think, for the month of October. I mean, obviously it's not going to set all-time openings or anything, but for the month of October, which traditionally October is horror movies.
Right.
I mean, that's, you get flooded with, poorly made, poorly budgeted horror movies every October.
It's great.
For some people, I guess. So the interesting thing, though, what I was surprised by this, because it made 93.5 here and it made something like 140 million overseas, is that there was a lot of controversy about this film leading up to it. I mean, there's all this, there was a warning by the military warning servicemen and women to take precautions because they were afraid of, some of the themes in this, that they're afraid that the movie is going to try to make empathetic the plight of someone who has mental health issues and who feels like his only way to combat society is to start murdering people and basically become like a domestic terrorist. And so there were some worries. The FBI issued a warning. Apparently there was one person in Long Beach that people left a theater because this guy was acting kind of weird and had a backpack, and the police picked him up and he was arrested on an unrelated warrant, but apparently he didn't actually pose any real threat to the movie.
He's like, I'm just going to see a movie, guys.
There. Yeah, but they said he had a backpack and he was standing by the emergency exit and kept looking over his shoulder.
It's weird.
Into the crowd over and over and over again. I mean, I don't know if he was trying to incite, panic and worry.
Right.
So there's all this kind of stuff that it was being discussed literally a week, days before the movie. And even with all that going on, it still set the record for October.
Wow.
So apparently a lot of people want to see this. I actually want to see this, but I knew I wasn't going to be seeing it this weekend.
Right. I'd like to see this movie too. I'd be interested to hear what people I know have to say about it.
Yeah.
You know, people that I trust, because I don't trust critics either way, to be honest. The audience score will be interesting on Rotten Tomatoes in like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I do understand the concern based on what I know about the film and what I've seen in the kind of the trailers and how we can see this leading up to, you know, what the end result is going to be with Joker. I can understand that now. Like, looking at this one, it's different than the other Joker movies that we've seen, or movies that Joker has been involved in, because this one is really showing the mental aspect of it, that he's deranged, and that, yes, even you can go and get these people around you who are like-minded and set the world ablaze.
Yep.
And that is terrifying to think about. You know, I get that it's a movie, but our climate is so volatile right now, especially in the United States, where we get shootings far too often.
Right. Yeah.
And so it is. I get the worry, and what happened at Batman, the third one,
Dark Knight,
Dark Knight Rises. You know, there can be some. There's some messed up people.
It was the Dark Knight. It wasn't the Dark Knight Rises.
One of them.
Yeah.
some you know, stuff happens. So I get it, but a whole lot of nothing, thankfully, this weekend. Yep. So grateful for that, but good for Joker, I guess.
Yeah. It'll be
record.
interesting. I really do want to see it, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I don't know if I want to rush out and try to go see it this week or weekend, or if it's something I can just like kind of wait on for a while.
I'm gonna wait.
I just want to hear. I think I'm like you. I want to hear from people that I know and that I trust and see, because I've heard some people. The problem is, like, the internet's the internet. You're going to hear great things and you're going to hear horrible things.
Right.
And so I want to hear from people I trust. But
yep. It was
anyway.
The Dark Knight Rises. 12 people were killed.
The Dark Knight Rises? I thought it was the Dark Knight.
Dark Knight Rises. There were...
You're talking about in Aurora, right? Colorado?
Yeah, in Aurora, Colorado. The theater was called Century 16 in 2012 when a shooter opened fire in a packed theater showing Dark Knight Rises and killed 12 and injured 70 more. How crazy. So I get it. I'm glad that everybody was concerned and on high alert. So we should be like that for all these. It's such a crazy world we live in, but for all major releases, I feel like we should be like on high alert. Every Super Bowl, I'm like saying a prayer that everyone's going to be okay, because it's a lot of people in one place and everybody's watching.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway.
All right. Do you have anything happier, right?
Yeah. How about something silly?
Something
you weren't asking for and something you weren't expecting. Remember Inspector Gadget?
I sure do.
He's back. He's going to be back.
Well,
I think he's current, too, in an animated form for 4 seasons, apparently.
Really?
But he's coming back. We remember Matthew Broderick was in a live action in like the 2000s.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure it was terrible. And obviously the cartoons in the 80s and the 90s, Inspector Gadget, right? We saw those. It was this bumbling, silly cop. And it's getting a remake under Disney, or a reboot, I should say, under Disney. The interesting thing, I mean, they got some decent things going for it so far. So it's going to be a live action.
Okay.
And it is from the producers of Aladdin, along with 2 writers from Saturday Night Live, Mikey Day and, I'm sure I'll mess this up, Streeter Siddell.
Okay.
So they're going to write the script. That's kind of all we really know about it right now. It's Disney. It's got the Aladdin, which I think I talked about this last week on my podcast. We loved the new Aladdin. Was really good.
Yeah, I haven't seen it still.
And we've got some Saturday Night Live writers, which is a mixed bag, let's be honest. Saturday Night Live is sometimes funny.
Hopefully it can be funny.
It has to be.
Right? It's
got to lean into... I don't know, it'd be interesting to see what kind of route they take with the comedy. If it'll be silly like you would expect in like an Inspector Gadget or like a Pink Panther kind of way, or if it'll be silly and like a wink, wink, nod, nod, like Lego movie kind of way, or it'll be interesting. But it has to be fun. I mean, it's going to be funny. It's got the Saturday Night Live writers. I can't imagine they would do something that wouldn't be comedy. But anyway, there you go. Take it for what it's worth. Inspector Gadget.
Inspector Gadget. Okay. I'm not gonna race out to go see it, but I'll probably end up seeing it. Kids.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. So something I am super excited about, and we've got a date. Okay, that's the best way to put this. The CBS All Access show Picard, which focuses on everyone's favorite Starfleet captain, Jean-Luc Picard, is coming out this January. I believe it's actually like January, I want to say 23rd. Yeah, January 23rd, 2020. It'll come to CBS All Access or Amazon Prime Video if you're in the UK.
Oh.
So just in case, we have some of our British listeners listening in. So the interesting thing is they showed a much longer trailer at New York Comic Con, which just happened this last weekend. They gave us the release date. Basically, it's kind of what you see in the trailer. It's years and years after he's in Starfleet. From the teaser trailer, we kind of worried, how's he going to get pulled back in? Is some old, something he did, a mission or whatever. Yeah. But it kind of looks like from this trailer that someone shows up at his door, basically needing his help. And this person must have some sort of a breadcrumb big enough that when they drop it down in front of him, he's willing to start going back and investigating and looking into it. And that kind of pulls him further down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and brings him kind of out of retirement. The whole trailer, you see all the kind of young cast that's going to be surrounding him for the most part, which looks good, which I'm glad they kind of did, because they need to set some expectations that, yes, while this is focusing on Jean-Luc Picard, he is going to be with a crew that's going to be much, much, much younger than him, which could have some great kind of dichotomy to play off between the young-old type of thing. His version of Starfleet versus what Starfleet is now. But then, of course, they got to hit you with the nostalgia. We get to see Seven of Nine, who was, a Borg and then, kind of basically more humanized. And then we get to see Will Riker and Deanna Troi, and it appears that they're married and together and that they've got a family, which for anyone who grew up watching Next Generation and then the Next Generation, based Star Trek movies, you always kind of wanted that to happen. You kind of knew that they were going to find their way back to each other. And obviously it did, and it looks like they're happy. It's not going to be some sort of, they married for a little bit, now they're divorced, and, blah, 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 but they have a shared kid. It doesn't seem like it's that. It seems like that they're together. I don't know how much Star Trek you've watched, if you've watched any of the old Next Generation stuff, but I tell you what, as a fan of Next Generation, I am stoked and super, super, super pumped for this new show.
Yeah, as we know, I'm not huge into Star Trek, and that's not that I don't like it. It's just that I never got into it. My family wasn't into it, so I didn't watch it, And I always grew up with, it was you either liked Star Trek or Star Wars. And that was an easy choice for me. Obviously now it's I like whatever the heck I want to like. And if I like them both, I get to like them both. So screw you.
Right.
But I did watch, obviously I've seen all the newer Star Trek movies, and I've watched some of the older Star Trek movies as well. But this trailer was lit. It looked so good.
So good.
It made me really, really want to watch it. Because as much as I say that I haven't seen a lot of the old ones, I still know those faces.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see this, like you said, the old cast and then these new characters. And it felt to me like I could probably pick this up and still enjoy it. I mean, they introduced enough newness, and you just have to, it looked like you didn't have to know everything. Anyway, it looked really good, and it made me want to watch it. I don't want to give CBS my money, but I do want to watch that show. It looks good.
Yeah.
It looks cool.
It sure freaking does.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait. And I'm going to get you gonna get you that Star Trek Discovery, because this is one of those things like, and I said this a while back to someone, is like, I think that they've really found a way with Star Trek Discovery to write Star Trek in a way that it's going to pull in people that have never maybe been engaged, who didn't get into Next Generation or the original series, and so they kind of didn't fall in line with some of like Deep Space Nine and Voyager and whatnot.
Yeah.
So,
good.
Anyway.
That's cool. Yes. I've got one more thing. One last thing.
Hit me up.
Maybe the thing I'm most excited for last, and mostly because I did not know that this was even coming. But there's going to be a prequel novel to the Hunger Games series. That's been known, I think, since like June.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little bit.
And now it's got a title and a book cover and a release date. So the next Hunger Games novel is called The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And it has this really cool, like, Target. I mean, like, you think of the Target logo, except it's black and green, and it's got the Mockingjay on it, but it's... obviously, you guys can go look that up.
Look it up, yeah.
It looks really cool. And so we get a little bit of a synopsis here, a little bit more about it. But before I say that, so it's going to be published by Scholastic on May 19th, 2020. Not too far away. But so it was on Good Morning America that most of this was, this information was given out. So it's set 64 years before the events of Katniss's revolution in the original series. Ballad will revolve specifically around the events of the 10th Hunger Games and the slow recovery from the dystopian nation state. So I wanted. I'm obviously I'm at a loss for words because I'm kind of trying to decide if I wanted a sequel or if I wanted a prequel. With so many of these movies, there's so many prequels coming out. But this one, I really did want a prequel. I want to know how all of this happened and what events triggered everything. Because it was The Hunger Games. This is actually a series I read, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. Surprised. I know. It was so captivating from the get-go. I really, like I said, if I read a book, it's got to be captivating. And this one was super captivating, and the story was so interesting. And so I think we get to know a little bit more. It's not everything more. We don't go all the way back to, the original Hunger Games or like the Purge movies, the first Purge or whatever. I haven't seen those,
right.
But we get to see. It'll be interesting to see what characters are involved and if we recognize any of them. I mean, 64 years before Katniss is a long time, but I don't know how age works and what the capital is going to be like. It's going to be really cool. I'm super excited about this. This was easily the coolest thing that I got to hear about this week. I don't know. What do you think?
Internet sleuths have figured out, and kind of, lined things up that if you remember, gosh, what was it? The second book when they did the Hunger Games, that was like the 75th Hunger Games. And they celebrated. Yeah,
that was messed up.
All the past winners that they brought in, and there was this old lady named Mags.
Yeah.
Mags though was in the 11th Hunger Games, so this takes place a year before that.
Okay.
So, I always kind of felt like, so obviously this is going to have no characters that are alive during what we know from the movies or the books. But if they would have, I mean, I guess technically Mags will be alive, but we're probably not going to see her at all. But if they would have done this in the 11th year, then you could have had, her year. However, we know that she won her year.
Yeah.
So there's kind of no real reason to, there's no suspense there. There's not going to be anything worth looking at. I mean, you'd watch it, but like, you know how it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting to me though about this is like, this is the 10th Hunger Games. So it's not going to be like, there was just this huge war and now we're doing these Hunger Games as a way to kind of thin out the, the youth and to remind people. Like, it just feels like it's a arbitrary number.
Yeah.
For like why we're celebrating this 10th one and showing kind of like what's happened over the last 10 years. I hope, hot take here, I hope that it's written well, but knowing Susan Collins, I don't believe it will be. I think that she had a great idea and a great story in her head, but it was written for a young adult audience, and because of that, I think she takes some rather obvious shortcuts in her writing that just are glaring to me and that they drive me nuts. The whole, I'm going to explain up to a point of like all this climactic stuff, and then our main character is going to get hit on the head, and the next chapter will start, and they're going to kind of come back from, being knocked unconscious, and then they're going to find out a thing or two that happened, but we don't really actually get to experience that. It's like, it would be like Lord of the Rings being written, and we get all the way to Mount Doom, and then we get this, cut scene where now we're back in Gondor, and then we found out that like, oh, well, actually Frodo did battle with Gollum and did get his finger bit off, and he did, end up, Gollum ended up falling in.
Right.
But Frodo, I think I said Bilbo, Frodo actually passed out due to blood loss, and so that's why we didn't actually get to experience it. So we're going to hear this from Sam's perspective, who watched all of it after it happened. Like, to me, that would just be like a total slap in the face. Like, don't take me on this journey and then shortcut me.
Look, Mockingjay was a hot mess. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
It was a hot mess. I read the whole series. I read Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and half of Mockingjay and said, well, this is complete this is terrible. And then I watched the movie and was like, oh, wow, the movie, great. Well, the movie was a mess too, I thought.
Yeah.
Especially part one. Like, man, well. Anyway, opinions. I agree with you. I'm hopeful, though, because the idea is really cool. And this is what I've heard, speaking of The Purge for some reason. Also, I've heard about The Purge, a really cool idea, really poorly executed. And so I have hope, because I still fondly think back on when I finished the Hunger Games in one day. My sister was like, you should read this. And I was like, I'm not going to read this. And I read it. I was like, I'm going to read this. And I really liked it. And I still really like those first two books. But you're right. For me, it was between the second and third book that it just became, I couldn't do it anymore. It was so annoying and like drawn out and just, I mean, it was bad.
Listen to it on audiobook, because you literally will go, wait a minute. Did my audiobook, did my Audible, did it jump forward? Like, did something, like you'll check your phone to see, because it just, like, it's such a hard cut in some of those places. Anyway.
I hope she's taking some criticism to heart, though. I really hope. I really hope
what?
So.
She probably made like $1 billion, so she probably doesn't have to.
I know.
But I would hope so.
We'll
see. Anyway, okay, so the last thing I have, I don't know how I can talk about this other than saying that Star Trek Discovery has a trailer out for the third season. You can go online and you can watch it. I would love to talk about it right now, but you haven't seen season 1 and 2, and I know that as soon as I get that to you, I know you will watch it. And so I don't want to ruin anything, because literally you can't say anything about this trailer that doesn't either A, give away stuff that happened in the second season, or B, would require a lot of explanation, which would then be spoilers for the second season.
Oh, man. I'm sorry.
So, go see it. If you've seen the first 2 seasons, go watch this trailer. If not, go watch season 1 and 2, then watch this trailer.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say.
I'm excited to watch it.
Coming out in 2020. That's all we know. We don't have a real date, but 2020.
All right.
So.
All
right, that's all I've got for Rebel Intelligence. You said you were out, right?
I'm out.
Okay, so last week we had a conversation about Spider-Man: Homecoming, and I think universally we agreed we loved that film. However, I posed a very difficult question of the week, where I said rank the movie versions of Spider-Man in order of your favorite to least favorite.
Yeah. Or
least favorite to favorite, whatever.
We'll see what they did.
So we got a few answers.
All right.
So let's start over on our email, which is fortofnerd@gmail.com. We have Peter Christensen. It says, Dear Nerds, Glad to hear the predictable news that Marvel and Sony made up for more Spider money. I pictured the negotiations with Sony waving their IP contract in Marvel's face, while Marvel had 20 iPads playing Tobey Maguire's emo finger guns on a loop. Then they hugged it out and dived into Scrooge McDuck's vault together.
Gosh.
The Marvel Netflix shows were excellent, but their budget meant a log of well-written, meaningful conversations with the priest. Which is kind of true. Spider-Man is big in our house right now. My 8-year-old son spent his birthday watching Spider-Man Far From Home while wearing his Spider-Man muscle costume. We also rewatched Spider-Man 2, and it lived up to its reputation. It was a little hard to watch. It's one thing to show Peter's life falling apart, but this movie felt like it flat out hated its protagonist. My gold star for unnecessary mean movies has never been Kiss with Drew Barrymore, but this movie came pretty close. Everyone openly complains that he's letting them down, and other than the train, he never gets any credit for his heroism. It felt like an alternate universe MCU movie. Well written, mix of action and humor, high stakes, etc., but the look, feel, pacing, and style were different from the MCU formula. Mm-hmm. It was awesome, but made me sad that the DCEU didn't have that magic. Maybe someday they'll find their Devin Leahy instead of Kevin Feige, Devin Leahy, that can provide a different but equally good unifying vision.
Peter killing it again, man. Gosh.
So
he's
good.
not
He
done
says,
either.
No. I agree with most of what you guys said about Homecoming. I wasn't excited for yet another Spider movie. I love that they dove right in instead of killing Uncle Ben again. Tom Holland's fresh enthusiasm caught me. It felt more like high school, and the villain. Oh, that villain. The reveal mid-movie was a rare moment where I actually gasped, and the conversation in the car has to be one of the tensest moments across 23 MCU movies. Civil War planted the seed, but this movie made me excited about Spider-Man again. Preach it, brother.
Yeah.
He says, ranking my favorite Spider actors. Tom Holland is best for all the reasons I just said. Tobey Maguire is next. His movies, along with X-Men, mark the birth of the modern superhero movies. But he's 27 years old in the first one, and it shows.
Yeah.
I'd rather see Andrew Garfield fighting Zuckerberg. Amazing Spider-Man didn't do anything for me. He's too tall and handsome to be Spider-Man, and I didn't even bother seeing the sequel. Cheers, Peter Christensen.
Hey, shout out to Social Network, though. That was a great movie.
It was. I did enjoy that movie.
I still like it. Okay.
Yeah, it's fun to watch every now and again to go back.
Yeah.
All right, let's go over to Facebook, where you can find us, facebook.com/ForwardOfNerd. We have Caleb Albers, which, surprisingly for Caleb, this is short, sweet, and succinct.
All right.
He says, Spider-Man, Garfield, Maguire, Holland.
Okay. From worst to best,
that.
I'm guessing.
You know, I actually don't know that that's worst to best. I'm wondering. Here, I'm trying to look at then, because then he ranks the movies.
Okay, yeah. How's he rank the movies?
So movies: Far From Home, Spider-Man 2, Homecoming. So I'm thinking
they're all good though, so it's hard to tell.
But I think those are best. I think we're starting with the best. So Homecoming, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2,
okay.
Spider-Man 3.
Okay, yeah, definitely going from best to worst. So he thinks Andrew Garfield is the best and Tom Holland is the worst.
Yes.
Hot take.
How do you feel about that?
I don't feel good about that. I understand the Andrew Garfield thing because I too like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, and I thought he and Gwen Stacy had great chemistry, and I thought that was a fun movie. However, Tom Holland, at least put him second.
I mean,
that's tough, man. That's a tough ranking.
I think partially for me too is like Tobey Maguire, like Peter said, did really kick off kind of the modern superhero, movement. And that first one and that second one, though, like, were really, really good with Tobey Maguire. But, like, Tom Holland at the bottom?
Ouch.
To me, Tom Holland, to me, is the best.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess the question is, Caleb, you got to follow up with me after this podcast release. Message me. You know how to get a hold of me. I want to know if it's splitting hairs for him, that they're all so close,
Right.
that it's like a coin flip, and Garfield, Maguire, Holland, the way he came out is that, or if this is wildly like he can't stand Tom Holland for certain reasons.
Interesting.
And he loves Garfield, and they're like way spread apart. I got to know your reasoning here, because not that you're wrong. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but this just seems backwards from the way I hear most people say it.
Right.
So I want to know why. I want just a little bit more. So that's Facebook. Let's go over to Twitter. On Twitter, we're at Fort of Nerd. So we have Network Newbie at dspin67. Good friend, super friend of the podcast. He says, okay, this is his order. 1, Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
2, Spider-Man 2, Maguire. 3, Homecoming, Holland. 4, Spider-Man 1, Maguire. 5, Far From Home, Holland. 6, Spider-Man 3, Maguire. And then it just says Garfield movies.
You gotta be kidding me. Come on.
He says, sue me for adding the animated movie. Sue me. Hashtag FON answers. So I'm going to say that it looks like, obviously, since he put Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse as his favorite of all the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, I'm not mad about that. That I'm cool with.
Right. And the only reason we didn't do that is because that's a voice actor versus actor. But if you go down by actors, it looks like it's Maguire, Holland, because it's literally Maguire, Holland, Maguire, Holland, Maguire, and then Garfield. So I'm going to say Maguire, Holland, Garfield's his order.
Man, we got some interesting, different, and that's cool. I like it. Okay. But Spider-Man 3, I'm sorry, is the worst Spider-Man movie. I'm sorry. It's the worst.
It is.
I get that you don't like Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. That's fine. But
No. I liked Amazing Spider-Man 1. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is hot garbage also. It's not as bad as Spider-Man 3,
right,
but it's not too far off either.
I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But
so let's move on. Bottom Line Wrestling Cast at Bottom Line Cast says, in order, 1, Tobey Maguire. 2, Tom Holland. 3, Andrew Garfield.
Okay. Wow. Not a lot of Holland love. I'm really surprised, to be honest.
I mean, for me, he's the top.
Yeah, me too. I asked my wife, because after we got off this podcast, I was like, Jesse, what do you think? And she said, bottom is Tobey Maguire, and then it's Andrew Garfield, and it's Tom Holland, which is what your wife said and what I said as well.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like 1A, 1B, and 1C. I like all of them as Spider-Man. They're great. But this is surprising.
See, the interesting thing, and maybe we even talked about this last week, is they all bring different things to the role based on kind of the source material they're pulling from.
Right, yeah. You mentioned that, right.
Yeah, and so it's hard for me, and that's why I asked the question, because I think it is a hard conversation, to try to figure out that. And then, especially if there's like no reasoning given behind the answer. So, anyway, thank you, Super Friends, for your answers this week to what I thought would be an extremely controversial ranking.
Yeah.
And we got some interesting opinions, and I'm glad we heard them, because it's given me more to think about in the Spider-Man realm. And so I'm going to look at that. If we were tossing in like Into the Spider-Verse, I mean, that makes that conversation even harder. Like, where do you rank that as far as the movies? But then, like, there's also the voice, because if we're going off voice acting, the voice acting of Peter Parker and Spider-Man in Marvel's Spider-Man game for the PS4 by Insomniac.
So good.
Ooh.
That movie really, that game really nails it. It's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, we will move on. Matt, Super Friends are out there. What can they do this week to give us a hand?
So this week, pick up your phone. Mm-hmm. Call your mom.
Done?
Ooh. Call your
call
mom or grandma or whoever's still around, who's out of touch, and explain to them the MCU and all the integral parts therein. Have them watch Endgame and make them call you and make you explain every character and everything that's going on, because that's happened to me. Next, what you can do is while you're on the phone and your mom or grandma or friend is blabbing to you about how they don't understand why Loki has horns on his head and, how he's back to life and what all that means, find us on iTunes and subscribe and give us a rating, leave us some comments. And after you've done that, hop back on, send us an email, get on Twitter, and answer the question of the week. We love to hear from you. It's a lot of fun. Lots of fun engagements. It feels like the conversations between more than just me and Spencer here. So we enjoy the community that your interactions bring. So it's just a simple 1, 2, 3 step. You're on the phone the whole time. There's nothing more you got to do. That's all I'm saying. Thank you in advance.
Nice. All right, Matt. So for our discussion this week, I kind of pulled this idea off something I did on Twitch end of last week. I decided that I was going to be streaming, and then I thought, what if I just have like a topic of conversation for the stream, so anyone that jumps in could just jump in and immediately have something we could continue talking about or talk about, because sometimes people will jump in and then they'll interact with you, but like they may try to find a way to interact with you. And I was like, well, what if I have a topic for that stream, and then we'll just kind of talk about that. So my topic was favorite 80s movies, and I was talking with Ed Placencia some, and I think Tim and Bernabe jumped in, and just a bunch of different people kind of jumped in. We were kind of talking about some of our favorite 80s movies, but Ed asked me a really good question. I was talking about an 80s movie that I loved, and he said, I haven't seen that in a long time. Does it hold up? And I kind of went, let me think. Does the movie actually hold up, or is this just my nostalgia that holds up? Because nostalgia can be a very powerful thing when it comes to movies from like your childhood or, from your formative years. So I thought tonight it would be fun if we could go back into the 80s and talk about each 3 movies we think do not hold up today when you watch it versus 3 movies you do think still hold up today.
I love it. This was a tough one for me. I'm excited to hear what you've got. I hope we've got opposite lists. I hope you've got one that holds up and I'm like, that movie sucks.
I actually have 5 that hold up just in case.
That's smart.
You came. And I'm going to be honest right now. There was a few that I felt like were give-me's, movies that I've talked about a lot on this podcast over the years. I intentionally did not pick those. Yeah. So when you come at me on social media and you say, you didn't even mention this. You didn't even mention this. You didn't even mention this. I'm going to say, yes, I know, but I talk about some of those movies all the freaking time.
There's like a holy grail of 3 franchises that I didn't touch for this podcast as it pertains to movies that still hold up. And nice. I think they're the same 3 franchises, maybe. I don't know what you didn't touch, but
possibly. So let's start with our 3 we don't think hold up. Let's start on the negative side. Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll finish on the positives.
I got to get my list out here. I know I'm smiling because I'm thinking of one that I might get. Actually, I might get in trouble for all of these.
You got some hot takes. I like it.
They're not hot takes. It's just movies. I mean, maybe they are hot takes depending on who you are. Okay. I'll start with the first one.
Okay.
And then I'm going to start off with a bang. Look, I just watched this movie. Okay, I just watched it. Jesse and I just watched this. And we walked away and went, this isn't good. And that movie is Beetlejuice.
Really?
That movie does not hold up. It just doesn't stand the test of time. I love Tim Burton. Michael Keaton's great. Yeah. That movie was not good. And I think it has to do with the special effects, too. So when I was approaching this, I was approaching it with, yes, through the lens of nostalgia, but also through the lens of either topically or technologically. Like when you watch it, you roll your eyes and you go, oof, oof. And for me, Beetlejuice, there were a lot of moments where I was like, oh, Microsoft Paint? Like, what's happening here? Like, this is rough. And,
I mean,
I don't know.
admittedly, you're always gonna have, when you go back far enough, the technology is gonna be an issue.
Definitely.
I also tried looking at this I tried to pull some of the technology out unless it's just horrible.
Right.
I also tried looking at more of like the story, the acting, and kind of how that would play out like now. To like, so for instance, like in Beetlejuice, right? The story is literally about a couple that die, and then they end up basically like haunting the house that they died in, but they can't go too far, and they're trying to like basically fend off keeping
their house to themselves,
the afterlife. Yeah. And like that story could work ish now, maybe, but like I feel like that would be a give me horror movie, whereas like Beetlejuice isn't necessarily a horror movie. It's more of like a
that's my problem. It doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, it's a dark comedy. It's a comedy. It's dark. It's gallows type of humor, but at the same time, like, does it really have like any heart and soul to it? Like, does it have like?
No, the resolution is really awkward. I don't feel like there's a good resolution. It feels like Tim Burton was trying to get his footing on his real style, and this was his first strong foray into the darkness, because he'd had like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and I'm not sure if that had come out yet at that point. I don't remember which came out first, Beetlejuice or Pee-wee. I'm going to say Pee-wee, which was dark in and of itself. If you go back and watch that, it's creepy. But this was
so good.
Yeah, I love that movie. I watched it so much as a kid. It's freaky. Anyway, but Beetlejuice, I just didn't feel like it held up, and misleading with the title of Beetlejuice. Michael Keaton's in it for like 5 minutes.
Man, but when he is in it, he does chew the scenery up.
Yes, he is great.
He is good
as Beetlejuice, but there are some jokes in there and things that he does that are highly appropriate at the time. Maybe like, haha, like women this. And now I'm like, we watch it, I was like, oof, cringe. This is painful. Oh, you can't say that in a movie anymore. Like, how was that okay? So it's very interesting to watch it through the lens now, and that's why I was like, nope, you're on the list, Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice does not hold up. I'm just thinking, because I have not seen that movie at least in a decade.
Yeah.
But you're probably right. Yeah, like I probably would watch it again now, and I would probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's one of mine. I remember loving this movie as a kid, and looking back at it now, and like, I tried to rewatch this a little while ago, and I couldn't get through it. Police Academy, the first one.
Okay.
So this is like the early, kind of early 80s, mid 80s, where basically after Animal House was, this big comedy movie, but it kind of pitted the kind of the slobs versus snobs formula.
Yep.
Right? And somehow like they wanted to kind of like take that, which was a very common theme in the 80s. They wanted to take that, but they wanted to put it into like the police academy. And we're going to tell a story about a bunch of rookie recruits going through the police academy. And all the jokes are just really, really sophomoric. They're not, a lot of them miss really hard.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like this movie, you had the one guy, the actor's name is Michael Winslow, who just like literally walked around, as like the human sound effects machine. And I remember like that being cool, like, ooh, what sound effect? But like when you try to rewatch the movie now, it's like the whole character is so pointless. It was just an opportunity just to get in the guy who makes a bunch of sound effects with his mouth. Steve Guttenberg actually is funny in the movie. This was like when Steve Guttenberg still did good movies, which was a long time ago in his career.
Yeah.
It does not hold up well. If you try to watch it today, it's hard to watch. It feels slow. The jokes don't hit. It feels really, really dated.
Yeah.
And you just kind of feel like they made this movie for Steve Guttenberg. They came up with a really weak kind of story, and it was just an excuse to let Steve Guttenberg kind of do his thing.
Well, I have not seen that movie, so I don't have much more to say, but that sounds like a quintessential 80s-esque movie. kind of
Yeah.
There's a lot of formulaicness to a lot of the movies in the 80s, and some of them are great and some of it doesn't work anymore.
Yep.
And I'm going to go in a really weird direction now. And I've talked about this franchise before. And I'm going to say I still like this movie, but it's not what I remember it being. And that movie is Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal.
Okay.
For me, it's still good, but especially after watching the new Netflix series, boy, it just doesn't hold up. It really doesn't. Like, the puppetry is cool, but they're stiff, right? It looks like you're watching something old. And I've got it in 4K, like HDR on my nice screen to like make it look good. And it's crazy what they could do from 1982, like a puppet movie, to make it look that good. But the pacing is really slow. It's kind of tough. I mean, Jesse had never seen it before, and I've always talked about The Dark Crystal. My sister and I used to watch it all the time, and we watched it together, and she was like, Matt, that was kind of boring, which is why she doesn't want to watch the Netflix show with me, and I'm trying to convince her that that's so much more exciting and so much more epic in its nature than what the movie was. The movie has memorable species and characters, but really, there's only a handful of characters because the world is dead. Like, that's the point of the movie. The world is dead and we've got to revive it. So you only get a handful of characters. It's an empty place. It's very dreary. It's just kind of a slow, lethargic feel to the movie, which I guess if you're in the right mood is good. But for me, this one just didn't age. It didn't age well.
I actually haven't seen that movie.
You should. It is good. And the first time you see it will probably be better than the experience I had at, 31 years old when I just watched it. I would recommend it. It's still kind of a marvel, but it was really a marvel in the 80s just because of the expansive world that puppets could make. It's tough now.
All right. Well, I hear a lot of good things about the Netflix series.
Yeah.
But I don't remember hearing a lot of good stuff about the movie growing up. I don't know. So maybe I'll watch the Netflix series and then go back and rewatch watch the movie.
Yeah.
As kind of like I want to see source material where this kind of came from.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yep.
All right. So this next one, another movie that I loved as a kid. Ooh, it is rough. I remember buying it on DVD when I first saw this on DVD. And then I still didn't even watch it right away, and I tried watching it like 5 years later, and I kind of remember thinking, why did I like this movie as a kid?
Yeah.
Surprisingly, it's another Steve Guttenberg movie.
Oh boy, he's back. He's back.
The movie is Short Circuit. So Steve Guttenberg and Ali Sheedy, actually, who both of them were pretty good in the movie, I'd say. But basically, it's like this experimental military robot. This is during the Cold War. He comes to life after being struck by lightning, which, knowing what I know about electronics now, striking a robot with lightning is not going to bring it to life. But basically, it's like, I don't know, they try to mix like E.T. and Pinocchio, and it feels, if you try to rewatch it, it feels clunky. The comedy doesn't hit on a lot of parts. Johnny Five, who is the robot, just comes across as annoying a lot of the time. And, it's set in the Cold War, and so you're going to have problems with, like, Cold War tension movies.
Yeah.
Because in today's day and age, we don't understand that concept anymore. Like, the whole idea of the Cold War existed for, like, literally 30 years, essentially. But, I mean, we're 30-ish years removed from that now.
Yeah.
So it's like, that just doesn't... it just doesn't have the same feel, and so it doesn't make much sense. I remember liking the music in it, but except for, like, one song, it's not that great as far as the music. They even ended up making a sequel of this movie, and I know I saw that as a kid, too. Short Circuit does not hold up. It is not good. It's slow. It's this weird thing, and just, yeah. Steve Guttenberg.
He's taking a beating.
Steve Guttenberg was in some really good stuff. And
yeah.
He was really good in stuff back then. but he also had some bombs, some stinkers. Now, don't get me wrong. Like both Police Academy and Short Circuit both made decent money. Back at the time, but just like today, the whole idea is like, does this hold up now?
Right.
In the 80s, yeah, it was good for its time. Does it hold up now? 30 years later? No, it does not.
Yeah. It's hard to, it was hard to judge some of these movies. The Dark Crystal was painful. And I never saw Short Circuit. I just looked it up. I love Steve, though.
Yeah.
Good dude. Wasn't he in 3 Men and a Baby?
Yes, he was in 3 Men and a Baby.
Tom Selleck, wasn't he in that, too?
And Ted Danson.
See, I say maybe that was terrible. I don't know. But I remember loving that movie.
3 Men and a Baby's a funny movie.
So anyway,
you should try to watch Short Circuit if you haven't.
Well, now I'm not going to.
And Police Academy. No, you really should. I'm saying, find it on streaming somewhere. Don't pay money, and just try to watch it and see how far you can get into it. All
right. Now this one, Beetlejuice was controversial, I think, because that's got like a cult following still. People still love that. There's some iconic things about that movie that people love. This one, I think, also has you know who's taking a beating in mine is Tim Burton, because this is Tim Burton. Yikes. And I love Tim Burton.
Ooh, I think I know what you're going to say. He's great.
This one is tough for me to say. And I say this one because guess what? I watched this movie last week.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm going to watch this because I think it's going to be good. Again, I remember watching it as a kid. And that movie is Batman. I know. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be mad.
No, Matt. Oh,
and the reason, this is the reason, okay? I love the portrayal of Joker.
Okay.
Fantastic. Love it. But it's tough. You can't go back and unsee what I've seen. And I have seen Christopher Nolan's trilogy. I can't unsee Christopher Nolan's trilogy. And it is the best iteration of Batman, for me, by far. And when I go back and I watch Batman, and I watch how very corny the dialogue can be, and then how painful some of the cutaway scenes are because they didn't have the special effects yet of Michael Keaton, dropping down from the ceiling and throwing a grappling hook up and zip, there he goes. For me, it's the cinematography more than anything that makes it distracting. It makes me feel like I really am watching an old movie. Now, that's not to say there aren't lots of redeeming qualities about this, because I always get, okay, here, I'm going to say something here because I never remember if it's Jack Nicklaus or Jack Nicholson, because one's a golfer and one's an actor.
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson. Fantastic. Really, really good. But sort of reminds me, it's just silly because he walks into a place and he's got these goons around him that are like dancing all weird, and they got these boom boxes, and I get that in the 80s that was great, but now it's just silly for me. And I prefer the portrayal of a Joker that's Heath Ledger, that's just maniacal and crazy in a different way. So for me, that one didn't hold up, y'all. Hot take.
That is, okay, I've been biting my tongue off over here.
I'm sure everybody else is too.
That's a very hot take, and let me tell you why I would not say that movie doesn't hold up. Why I actually do think it holds up. So that movie, for me, Michael Keaton is my favorite Batman. Now that also could be a little bit of nostalgia because Michael Keaton was my Batman. This is 1989. I was 10 years old when this movie came out.
Yep. Batman
was everywhere. We got the Batman ride at Six Flags Great America. I've got pictures next to that Batmobile, which is by far still my favorite Batmobile. Pictures next to the car. It was a big, huge departure from the only filmed version of Batman we'd ever seen.
Yeah.
From the Adam West Batman.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it still had a little bit of the camp to it. It still had some campiness, but it was dark, and the music by Danny Elfman in that film is amazing.
Music's great.
Jack Nicholson's amazing. Michael Keaton as Batman, like, he portrayed what I always loved Batman to be. And I actually am not a huge... I don't think it's horrible, but I'm not actually a huge fan of the Christian Bale Batman because he did the whole... And I'm not going to do it now because my microphone will go nuts, but like he changes his voice when he's Batman to try to make it sound like he's a chain smoker.
Right.
I didn't care for the Tumbler. That's not the Batmobile. They didn't want to do the Batmobile because they felt it would be too easy to go to, so they did this militarized, you know, thing, and we got the Tumbler. The stories in those movies, in the first two of those movies, I didn't care for The Dark Knight Rises. But the story in The Dark Knight and Batman Begins, I thought were really, really good. I like those movies, so I'm not knocking those. But I am saying that, like, some of this stuff that happens in 89's Batman, if that stuff didn't happen, we wouldn't have got the Christian Bale Batman. I think it holds up. I'm also speaking from a place of, like, that's my Batman, and maybe the nostalgia's talking, and maybe I should rewatch it again. I just don't know if I could watch it again with unbiased eyes.
I get that completely. I think that makes sense. But I would go back and rewatch it. That's all I'm going to say. I'd go back and rewatch it and just evaluate it just on its own, if you can. It's not a bad movie. I watched the whole thing and I liked it and I wanted to know what happened next. I wanted to be a little bit controversial and not do something obvious.
Sure. Yeah.
But to me, it's like, again, comparing it against what we have now. And I get that that movie was kind of the first entrance into a really dark Gotham. And I appreciate that because that's so Tim Burton. And I wanted to love it because it's Tim Burton and I love what he does. But just because it was good then and it introduced those things then, for me, didn't make it good now.
Yeah.
And there were some other ones that I was throwing around. I want to do some honorable mentions for this.
Okay. Yeah.
After you do your last
for sure.
one.
I'll say this on the last thing on the Batman thing because like you just shook
I'm rocking your world.
I thought you were going to actually talk about like Edward Scissorhands or something like that. I'm like, that movie's crap.
Scissorhands.
I'm like, I didn't like that movie. It's not going to hold back up for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. You can keep your "Why so serious" catchphrase, because I have a better one from my Batman, and that's, "Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?" Good night. I remember as a kid hearing that and going, we walked around and like that was the thing. Like, you know, like, I don't know, we'd be playing like guns out in like the backyard or over the school. And like, you know, we'd hold up a gun to your friend and he'd be like, "You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?" And then you'd, you know, pretend to blow them away immediately. Like you never even let them answer that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very nostalgic speaking still. Very nostalgic.
I know. Just, okay.
I'm not trying to hurt you. This hurt, like I said, these things hurt me. We're talking The Dark Crystal for me. That was one of my favorite films as a kid.
Okay, so my last one, and then I do also have two honorable mentions in this category. Risky Business.
Okay.
Tom Cruise. This is like, you know, Tom Cruise, like when he'd been making like, you know, Taps and Cocktail and Risky Business, and this was probably like right after Top Gun. Like Risky Business, I remember being like a big movie at the time. But really, if you go back and you look at that movie, or you try to remember back, what do you really remember about that movie? You remember Tom Cruise sliding across the wooden floor with the Bob Seger movie in his underwear and a shirt. Mm-hmm. You remember about him, you know, using the phrase in the movie WTF. And you basically kind of remember that, like, he was trying to get laid maybe at a party, and instead he ended up like helping run a prostitution ring.
Right. Yeah.
This is the story is kind of all over the map. The movie really only, I think, did well based on it was Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise was the biggest star in the world at that time. Anything he was going to be in was going to make money. Like, you wouldn't make a movie now about some high school kid helping some prostitute run a prostitution ring in order to try to like not get in trouble with his parents because some glass crystal egg thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it seems so far-fetched now. It's like, no, a kid would have a high school party, it would get broken, he would either go onto Amazon and try to find a replacement, or he'd just fess up. He's not instead going to get lampooned into running a prostitution ring to keep out of trouble. Like,
right.
That just seems so far-fetched. But in the 80s, hey, man,
Sure.
that could possibly happen. Sure.
Why not?
It'll make for an interesting story. Risky Business, I think, is hot trash. Looking at it today, it does not hold up.
Yeah.
It is not a movie I'd go back and say, like, hey, if you're going to go back and watch an old Tom Cruise movie, I'd say go back and watch Interview with the Vampire. Go back and watch Top Gun, even though Top Gun maybe could also make this list.
Right.
But Top Gun's Top Gun.
Right.
Go back and watch something.
Yeah.
A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
But I would not tell people to go watch Risky Business. Nor would I tell them to go watch Cocktail either. So, just saying.
I'm fine with that one. No problems. No issues here.
Okay.
Tom Cruise has not just made good movies.
No.
Because guess what?
He has made his stinkers.
I'm with you. Top Gun was an honorable mention on my list. Not because it's a bad movie, but because some of it is bad. Like, really bad. Like, painful.
Go and
awkward.
Like, if you watch the last action sequence, which is like maybe 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
If you close your eyes and you don't watch it and you just listen to the dialogue, it is nothing but a bunch of cursing. It is, it's just GD,
Poorly.
Maverick, GD.
Yeah. Yeah.
GD, like nonstop. Like, that's all they say for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And you realize, like, that's the best they could come up with for like an action sequence.
Yeah. It's that one. That one was on my list. The other one is The Little Mermaid, and not because it's bad. I think it's a great movie, but because the content does not hold up today. I feel like if that movie was released by Disney today, they would be hearing about it all day and all night.
Except they're doing a live action Little
They're
Mermaid.
changing it, man.
I mean, they're gonna have to.
They're changing it up to make it, more
maybe empowering and less
I hope so, because it's all about this girl, and she that's what I say to that. Ugh.
Yeah.
And then the last one I have, just to cap this, the ones that don't hold up, Better Off Dead with John Cusack. And I say that doesn't hold up, not because it's not funny, but because you don't joke about suicide in the 2020s. You don't do it. The whole movie is about a guy who wants to kill himself because his girlfriend dumps him.
Yeah.
Can't do it anymore. Funny at the time. When I watched it, I was like, suicide's funny. It's not funny.
No.
And you can't make that movie. So that's another one that it didn't age well.
I'm on board with that. I understand. Okay, my two other honorable mentions. Weird Science. Two boys that are super, super horny, so they try to create a female robot, basically a sex robot.
Yeah, weird.
And they get Kelly LeBrock. At the time, I remember thinking that was awesome and, whatnot. It's just, pre-adolescent, hormones. Yeah. And then Revenge of the Nerds.
Same
Once
thing.
again, it's kind of that slob snobs formula from the 80s. It just, you look at it and it's corny jokes. It's not funny now.
It's low bar, man.
It's low bar.
There's lots of low bar.
Yep. And don't get me wrong, I mean, 20, 30 years from now, we're going to be picking out movies that came out in this decade.
I know.
That'll be the same thing. But yeah, from the 80s, that doesn't hold up. Okay, so now let's flip it. Movies that do hold up.
All right, so I'll start it off with one of my favorite movies of all time. And it is, Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase.
Ooh, that's
absolutely
a good
one of my favorite movies. I watch it every Christmas, and it just holds up. If you like that style of comedy, I get there's people out there who don't like it. I don't understand you. I don't get you. I don't know why we're friends. I don't know why I'm married to her. She hates it, but good grief, that is still just, it's relatable. It's funny as all get out. It's just it. For me, it's Chevy Chase really at the top of his game. As funny as he can be with his facial expressions, the physical humor, the nuances of how he acts. It's to me, it's a perfect Christmas movie, a near perfect comedy. It's just fantastic. The cast is great. Everything about it is great. It holds up. It's still funny.
Yep, I agree. I actually did not go with comedies because comedies can be really subjective.
That's fair.
And what's funny in certain generations and genres at a time looked at differently. Like I've said, Seinfeld's hard for me to go back and watch now because I just don't find it as funny as I used to in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Not saying it's not funny, but just like, times change, jokes aren't going to hit the same. Also, if it's, specific to a time period or a person that we wouldn't know now. Right. Like I had that problem rewatching like some of Friends. Is like, they're like, it's this person. I'm like, who's that person? Like, I don't even remember who that person is anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all of the movies I have on this, like, literally drop into like some of my favorite movie categories from the 80s. So my first one, this is literally one of my favorite of all times, Terminator. This is like, the premise of this is simple, right? A cyborg assassin comes back from the year 2029 to basically wipe out a threat that's going to affect the future. It's James Cameron. He wrote this story. Arnold Schwarzenegger's, the T-800, he's going to come back to kill Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor, so she can't give birth to her son, John Connor, who one day will lead the uprising against the cyborgs or the sentient, AI.
Yep.
This is a theme that, like, literally Deadpool 2 had that same kind of like, time travel is crucial to the plot to, reverse something. Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, same thing.
Yeah.
It's just as popular as a theme today as it was back then. Obviously, we still have other Terminator movies, that kind of gone on after that. And so, like, they continued on the franchise. But if you go back and you rewatch the 1984 Terminator, it's classic sci-fi B-movie. Even though the budget wasn't huge in it, some of the technical effects in it are still really kind of good looking, especially knowing that this came out in the 80s. But the story is just on point. The acting is amazing. You believe in the terror that Sarah Connor's going through when the T-800 is chasing her and still coming at her after she's like basically shredded it, in half and, put it through the big press. And I mean, it's an amazing movie.
Love it. Yeah. That I'm in. It's funny you said no comedies. Literally all of mine are comedies. So the next one then, since I know we're not going to overlap, is Ghostbusters.
Oh, hallelujah. Yes.
Preach, right? I don't even know what else to say. It still lands. It's still funny. You can knock on the special effects if you want, but it's not distracting. It's one of the best written just comedies, but it's got this great story to it. There's so many things I could say about Ghostbusters and how much I love it and how it influenced me as a kid and Halloween costumes.
I think you said it right. It is the best written comedy of all time.
It's just,
I really do believe that.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what else to say. I don't need to say anything else. It's great. And it absolutely holds up. Yep.
All the acting in it is amazing.
That cast, oh my gosh.
So good. I mean, gosh, like Rick Moranis is so freaking perfect in his role as Louis Tully. Oh like just so amazing. Like I literally can watch that day, night, it doesn't matter. It's gold for me. It's just gold through and through. It's actually one of the movies I did not put on this list because I've gushed over how much I love Ghostbusters and how perfect I think it is of a comedy that it can be viewed today and it still holds up and is still super funny.
Yep,
so
it does. Love it.
All right. This one is one that I didn't watch when it originally came out. I watched it later, but I think it encapsulates so much of the 80s. This is The Breakfast Club.
Oh, yeah.
So Breakfast Club is simple premise, right? Kids are locked up in detention, but then it uses that moment, that day, to like explore the psychology of teenagers that are, popular, and then also those that are not. And what's interesting about this is, it's John Hughes, but he takes these preconceived notions, these stereotypes, right? Because all of them are like, he's the jock, this guy is the he's the jock, he's the kind of the stoner, she's the goody two shoes, she's the loner, he's the, kind of nerdy kid. Like they take all these preconceived, stereotypes, and then John Hughes basically just starts like ripping them apart, and you realize that like, the star athlete, has like these daddy issues, and the super popular girl, everyone thinks, she's like super sexually active. She's actually like a prude.
Right.
And, there's just like all these issues, like the hoodlum is, he's got problems, with his dad, and, that's just, I don't know. It's great. It's a wonderful way of saying like things aren't always what they appear to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a story that easily is identifiable in any generation, especially for young people. I think that it holds up really, really well. It doesn't have special effects, you're not doing that.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with that. It's got great music. I think it's literally a great movie that encapsulates the 1980s. Also has Molly Ringwald in it, which she was a darling of the 1980s. It has
my boy
Anthony Michael Hall, who is literally a darling of the 80s. Emilio Estevez, Judd Nelson, Ali Sheedy. I mean, it literally is like a who's who of 80s actors and actresses.
I agree with your assessment of The Breakfast Club. So freaking good. I was talking about this last night with Jesse, and we're going through some of these 80s movies and what holds up and what doesn't, and what's still just fine, right? I mean, there's still movies that are just fine. The Breakfast Club came up, and somebody mentioned, because I have my mother and father-in-law here, I don't remember who, but they were like, man, that one doesn't really hold up. And I thought, what? Yeah, that story is so timeless.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, and it's a great message. Yep. That we can hear. And I compare it to Community, right? It's the original Community. A bunch of people who are totally opposite and so different and don't understand each other come together to form something unique. And for them, maybe it was just for that one day, right? And they learned something about themselves and about other people, and they became better people for it. And I agree with you. That's a great movie that absolutely holds up. And it's got my boy Emilio. I mean, come on.
Yep.
There's some great lines in that too. Things that stick with you that are really great, really funny, and introspective. So great choice.
Cool.
Totally
cool.
into that. Great reference. Okay, my last one, another comedy, totally holds up. We can all relate to it. It's still so good. Is Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, I love that.
Just a great movie. Another really well-written comedy with a great cast, with chemistry between the actors and actresses that are, on screen mostly together, and the relatability of Ferris Bueller and the likability of him and his best friend, right, who doesn't want to get in trouble, and he's sick, and it is a great movie that gets talked about all the time, because I tried to do like hyped up movies that we hear about that maybe don't hold up anymore. But for me, Ferris Bueller's Day Off still holds up. It's still really funny. It's still current. Kids still want to skip school and be cool and funny, and it's great. I love that movie.
Do you have a kiss for daddy? Seriously, like there's so much that the Sausage King of Chicago, Abe Roman.
So
Rooney. Anyway, we actually talked about that movie on the stream the other night.
Oh yeah,
Ed brought it up, and we were talking about that, and just like, oh man, Grace. Anyway, such a good movie.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in agreement. I think that movie does hold up as well. So here's my dilemma now.
Uh-oh.
I've got 3 left.
Okay.
I think all 3 deserve this spot, but I'm going to pick the one that I think probably, when most people think of 80s films, this is probably one of the biggest ones that's going to come to mind. This is E.T., the extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
So it literally is quintessential 80s movies. It's Steven Spielberg at his best. He's made a lot of great movies, but at his best, where he's showing the innocence of childhood and the wonderment that they have as they literally discover an extraterrestrial, an alien that is left on this planet by accident, and how a boy, Elliot, how this boy interacts with E.T. and becomes best friends, because it's so relatable. Like, kids have such an amazing range of compassion and love that they can give to other children and people that they see that are hurting or in need. And like, you get that with the relationship between Elliot and E.T. It's got all the cute cuddliness of children, but it's also got this story of like, you just want to help out. Like, you know, he just wants to help out his friend.
Yeah.
He just wants to help his friend get home. It is an amazing film. I think it's quintessential 80s.
Yeah.
It's got great music. I think that story could be told at any time in any decade and could work. The problem why I don't think we get it a lot is because you really have to get amazing child actors and a believable alien, and you have to have chemistry there. And I think Steven Spielberg in the 80s knew how to really capture that kind of magic and that feel.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're ever going to find another filmmaker that's going to do that. Now, the story's timeless, but I just think everything is going to be a pale comparison to this. So I think that stands up in today's society, and you could watch that with your children and still appreciate it for what it is, and it's not going to look hokey and, you know, corny.
I agree. I think it's a great film. You summed it all up. Connecting with somebody else and sharing that connection and caring about that connection, even if you only know one thing about them or two things about them. Reese's Pieces and I want to go home. You know, I mean, that's all it takes. And you see it with your kids, right? Your kid can make a kid at the park. It's like they're best friends. Yeah. If I see another dad at the park, I'm like, I don't really want to talk to you.
Right. I'm amazed by Charlie in how many best friends he'll meet someone. He'll say, "This is my best friend." He doesn't refer to people as like, "This is my friend" or "This is someone I know." Everyone becomes his best friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's amazing, and I think like that's what we get in that movie, E.T. So
love it.
Those are my top 3 movies that hold up. What do you have for honorable mentions? Do you have honorable mentions in the hold up category?
So the only honorable mention that I have, and I did this as honorable mention just because I have talked about this and my love for this, and that's Willow. That's the only one that I reserve for honorable mention. It's still freaking good, and it's still an epic film. And the 3 that I kept off was Back to the Future, Empire Strikes Back, and Indiana Jones. Those are the 3 that I took out.
Those are the 3 I took out as well.
Yep.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, because I think, you know, the story of an archaeology professor that ends up running into the Nazis and is going to try to stop the Nazis from taking the Ark of the Covenant. You could do that at any given time, and it's going to be easily recognizable because you have a clear villain.
Yep.
And you have a clear hero.
Yep.
And you understand, like, if you don't do this, like, the world will end. Like, it's easy. That kind of story's been told a bunch. But Raiders of the Lost Ark is amazing. Yep. Back to the Future. I mean, obviously, I love Back to the Future. It's quintessential 80s. You can watch it. It's once again another time travel movie, and I've said this over and over and over again. I love time travel movies, especially good ones.
Yeah.
Back to the Future, that first one is just so good. And then, of course, Empire Strikes Back. It's my all-time favorite movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, I left those 3 off. I was like, if I have honorable mentions, there'll be honorable mentions. I was like, but I didn't want to pick them because I felt like that would be too easy.
Agreed.
Of a go-to, and I wanted to, you know, go a little deeper and pick some other things. Mm-hmm. So, Yeah, I'm with you. So here's the thing. I want to hear from the Super Friends. I want to hear what they think is a movie that does not hold up from the 80s and a movie that does hold up from the 80s. There's a lot of movies in the 80s, Matt.
There were so many. I went through so many lists.
And I think that we could hear some really good stuff that maybe would surprise us, or maybe that we may or may not agree with. But I want to hear those from you, Super Friends, next week at all those usual places. Let us know, and we'll talk about them next week. And I'm excited for that. Matt, it's been another week.
Yeah.
This week you got a new baby boy in tow with you.
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing your update next week and probably seeing a more tired Matt.
Right on. Excited for that.
You go take care of that baby boy.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude, to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you. Always.